Welcome into the Bite Meat podcast, and really appreciate you guys. This podcast, I've been getting notes and questions all week long, which is always a good sign. That means this podcast is taken off. We've had some terrific guests. We've had some terrific questions from you people, and of course, people are subscribing. You can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, which is where we host it, so we always mention that one, etc. I am John Lopez. This is the Bite Meat podcast, brought to you every week by Texas Star Grill Shop, which is a great friend of mine, and I know a great friend of our guest this week, which I've been sort of bugging her, for being honest, about coming on the podcast, because she is a favorite of mine and a favorite of a lot of people who've seen her all over. World champion, and that is Danielle, best nickname in barbecue, Diva Q Bennett. It's a pleasure to have you. Should I call you Diva Q or Diva or Danielle?
Any of the following above or previously named are okay with me.
Diva Q is like I'm all about branding. I do my regular radio show. I have the fishing podcast, and this one is called Bite Meat because my fishing podcast is called Bite Me. But you're in another world when it comes to Diva Q and branding. That was just absolutely perfect. How did it come about?
Funny enough, it's actually an oxymoron. I don't think a lot of people know
You're not a diva? Is that what you're telling us?
Oh, no. But here's the deal. I never show up. My nails are always done. My makeup's always done, no matter what, 24/7. But in all reality, you actually can't be a diva in barbecue. I haul my own cases of meat. I light my own fires. I hook up my own generators. I back my own trailers up. It's never been about being a diva or diva behavior, but I think for me, it mostly means that I hold myself to a different standard than maybe some people. One of the things I've done over the last 18 and a half, almost 19 years now in this career is I've never just taken a check. And we all know that there are lots of sponsorships out there. There's lots of opportunities. And my whole thing is that I come from, I'm going to say, very humble beginnings. And I never wanted anybody to spend their hard-earned money on crap, to be perfectly honest. And, so you see those people that flip companies from year to year. You see those people that, they'll take a check for anything, whether the product works or not, or things like that. And I'm like, I'm not going to be doing that. I might be a diva for saying this, but I'm only actually going to partner with people that I truly love, truly believe in. And I would say 95+% on my clients come to me. I don't go to them. And that's kind of been, and that's companies that I work with, that's brands that I associate with. And so I think that's in the diva behavior.
Well, that's good. But it is, it's absolutely great, branding, etc. But let's start with kind of the news of your life. I said I was bugging you, and I knew you were from Canada, and I'd forgotten that you had moved down to Florida. I said, hey, can you come on the podcast? He said, well, there's this little thing in the Gulf that is about to bear down on me. You tell us, with Hurricane Milton bearing down, I mean, it hit your area pretty dang hard.
Yeah, we had some definite damage here. The thing is that when you move I've been here for 10 years now here in Florida. And one of the things is that if you're going to move to Florida, you better expect to be encountering hurricanes. And I've hit some really hard ones over the last few years. The last one cost me about between $10,000 and $12,000 out of pocket for repairs and things like that, because nobody ever wants to go through insurance in Florida. It's a horrific situation here for insurance and homeowners insurance. And I'm not sure why we're paying into it, because nobody ever pays it out. And if they do, they cancel your policy. And this is a very common thing where I live. So this last one, it was very troublesome, because I live in Central Florida, and it thankfully, I'm going to say very thankfully for at least my area, we had no power for a week. I had some massive tree branches out. I lost my banana tree this time, which doesn't sound like a big deal until you go to have to repurchase all these things. Yeah. Over the years, I've lost every one of my trees. I've lost my big heritage tree, which was like 200+ years old. I've lost my orange tree, my lime tree, lemon tree, mango tree. I've now lost all my big trees and my little trees in the backyard. And this one was more, cosmetic damage, thank goodness, on this one. But I have friends of mine, not even 20 minutes down the road, that had like 8 feet of flooding, that had, trees that were down. This one was probably the most relentless. I was up all night, as always, and it was the most relentless for rain and wind. The wind was terrifying on this one, and I'll be perfectly honest. It is a long damn night when you have to go through these, and I'm just really thankful that I live at a little bit of a higher elevation. Half a block away from me, there was flooding.
Man.
So like I made it really well with this one, but it's scary, and you're sitting there with your generators and your hopeful preparedness and
Yeah.
hope you hit all the tick boxes. And I will say I'm very lucky that a few years ago I bought a lifted F-250, which is actually able to go through the little flood path that's right around the corner. So I managed pretty good, but yeah, it was scary. And there's so many people that were still recovering from the previous hurricane that it's kind of like this tumbleweed. And of course we have to give a shout out and thanks and many blessings. And I am so ever grateful for all the emergency management services. Truly grateful and thankful to all of our fire departments, service people, and the rock stars, the linesmen. Honest to goodness.
Oh my goodness, yes.
I got my power back, like I said, after a week, and I wasn't expected, even on the expectation. They tell you when they're estimating when they're going to come repair your lines, and they were almost a full week ahead of schedule, and that is. It's one thing to have no power when it's 65 degrees out, in all honesty. When I was up north further, if the power went out for 4 or 5 days, you
bundle up.
Yeah, you're fine. You're good. Here, when it's like 90 plus degrees and it's humid as heck, and I'm not so concerned about me, but I'm thinking about all of our seniors here, and people that have medical issues here in Florida. We have a high seniors rate population, and those are the people you got to worry about, more than anything. So,
well, as someone who lives in Houston and has been through 35 years worth of hurricanes and power outages and everything else, we just had Beryl come through. We've had obviously Harvey. I can relate, but we do tie this back. This is my job now. We do tie this back to what we're talking about here with the podcast, the Bite Meat podcast. I was just enthralled. Boy, you cooked your way through that dark week, man. You had a dark week, but you were cooking your way through everything. And by the way, those generators came in handy from your barbecue world.
Yeah, it's so funny because my competition world, my previous competition world set me up well because, of course, I've still got all my supplies, which is my generators, my butane stoves, my hookups, everything else. So, yeah, all week. It was funny because I got some people reaching out going, why are you cooking so much when you have no power? Well, when you're a barbecuer, it doesn't really matter. We were used to setting up at competitions without any power. And now, of course, when we're at home, so I had my Traeger flat rock out the back. I had 3 tanks of propane for that. I had my Yeti Goal Zero power stations, a 1500X, and that helped power my Traeger. I did a little preparedness because I've been through this so many darn times now. I grilled up some chicken breasts, I grilled up some steaks, I grilled up some bacon.
Keep going.
Got that all prepped, and then I just kind of kept going with everything else. And the key is not to eat all your hurricane snacks ahead of time. So it's very careful management of hurricane snacks. And my whole thing is, I always laugh when people, go to the store and things like that because, they buy, all the bread and milk. My whole thing is that I have flour, I have yeast, I can do anything on my grills, and I'm good. I'm good to go.
There you go. There's a lesson there. By the way, you mentioned the Yeti Goal Zero, and this is, I'm not an endorser. This is unpaid endorsement. I bought my first one about 6 months ago, actually from Texas Star Grill Shop. I bought the 700. That thing is a game changer. For those who don't know, you just plug it in. It's not gas.
Yeah.
You can put it anywhere.
It's convenient. It's really convenient, honestly. So I of course have a Honda generator as well, and it's for my competition days. So that's the Honda generator.
That's outside.
Yeah, exactly. So the great thing about that is that I have 2-door commercial fridges, 2-door commercial freezer in my garage. At that point, I had already moved anything that would, be perishable into either one fridge or also the big freezer. So that Honda generator just powered my freezer outside because, there's like 3,000 boxes of meat in there, so future projects on the go. But the Yeti is the one that I brought in the house and moved it where I needed it. I have USB rechargeable fans here at the house because, like I said, been through this a few times.
Yeah.
I have, your battery backup for your phones, the grills, all the things. And it was a good source of powerful energy that didn't take too long. And actually, funny enough, overnight, I would often charge it off the generator
Yes.
outside.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was kind of like this wonderful little cycle, not wonderful, but, and a
Successful anyway.
yeah, successful, cycle. And that enabled me to keep my house running as for the things that really truly mattered.
So there you go. If you want to be prepared for a hurricane, get into backyard pit mastering. It helps. Let's get into that because I don't want to waste your time. I mean, I shouldn't say that because that was a great story, but we need to get into some cooking stuff. And part of my idea for wanting to get you on now is here we are, October. I've seen you cook everything up close. I've seen you online cook everything. But it just seems to me like the holiday poultry is one of your favorites. Am I wrong there? And we've got turkeys coming. We've got sides coming for a lot of people that are watching and listening to this podcast.
Well, I think the fact is that I've done so many videos and I've been asked to host so many classes to teach Thanksgiving because Thanksgiving tends to intimidate a lot of people because, you're feeding people, you're having a good time. Thanksgiving is also the most online, all the recipes online for Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually the most concentrated amount of searches for one holiday is actually Thanksgiving, not Christmas. And so I get asked this a lot. Next week, fun enough, guess what I'm doing? I'm doing a turkey early.
Of course.
Some new stuff. I've got a lovely hot honey glaze and a hot bourbon glaze that we're going to be trying out. So I think one of the things that just intimidates a lot of people, and it's not that hard. You just need to understand how poultry works.
Well, you said it's not that hard, but here we are. We've had everyone from Aaron Franklin to Leonard Botello to Grant Pinkerton. We've had Jess Pryles on, and a lot of times the questions we get are about chicken and should it be a whole chicken? Should you spatchcock it? Should you do this, pieces, etc.? Well, a turkey, if you haven't noticed, is bigger, and so it seems to be more of a challenge in terms of how you're preparing it. How would you recommend? An actual turkey, in this case, I'm guessing on a Traeger.
I'm going to say absolutely. I've got some rules for anybody, whether they're on a Traeger or not. Here are my basic rules for cooking a turkey. Number one, stop buying the huge turkeys. First and foremost, buy a turkey that's 9 to 12 pounds. I think that is up to 14 is about the max I like to go. There's a couple of reasons there. First of all, the proteins are more tender at the younger age and the smaller size of a turkey. Mm-hmm. Secondly, I highly recommend spatchcocking for everyone. Spatchcocking is such a simple thing. And if anybody wants to Google a recipe, here's how you do it. You just go to Google, type in Diva Q and whatever you're looking for. I've been doing this 18 and a half years. You can pretty much find thousands of recipes of mine at this point. And half the time I have to Google it because I've done so many recipes over the year. So if you literally Google Diva Q turkey, you're going to find a ton of my stuff from a hands-on tutorial on how to spatchcock a turkey really simply, to how to actually get different flavor profiles. Turkey is one of the best blank canvases of flavor opportunities that there is out there. So one of the great things is spatchcock your turkey. Pick the right size turkey. An average brine is 1 hour per pound. Now, if you're dealing with a 9 to 12 pound turkey, that is a perfect size because it'll usually still fit in a regular fridge, okay, or even a small Yeti. And that's a great thing to do. If you run out of space in your fridge, ice up a Yeti, make sure it's below 35 degrees, of course, keeping it nice and safe. But a great average, kind of way to do it is 1 hour per pound for an average brine. And if you're looking for a brine, you can also Google like 15,000 of mine because brines could be anything from the sweeter side of things to more savory, like with herbs and things like that. The other thing I would recommend is if you want a crispy skin, take your turkey out of the brine, pat it dry, leave it in your fridge uncovered overnight on the bottom shelf because poultry should always be on the bottom shelf for food safety. And that's actually going to dry out some of the skin as well. The other thing I would say is that always pay attention to the timelines of taking that freezing out of that turkey. So that means that you're going to thaw the turkey slowly in your fridge over the course of usually 5 days. And I think a lot of people forget, and all of a sudden they're like, oh my gosh, it's 48 hours. We got Thanksgiving. And the other thing is that don't be afraid to just cook a turkey breast. I cook turkey breast all the time. I actually did one last week. It's on Twitter, it's on some social media, I'm sure. I post so much. One of the things is that there is nothing wrong, okay, if you're hosting a smaller party, cook just a couple of boneless, skinless turkey breasts. You can wrap them in prosciutto. You can wrap them in bacon. They can be a lovely, actually a very elegant turkey dinner when that's done. Brining is key. Seasoning that turkey is so essential because once again, turkey is a blank canvas. So if you want a Cajun spicy turkey, inject some Cajun butter. If you want a seasonal kind of traditional flavor, go for poultry seasoning with a little bit of butter. Put that under the skin of the turkey. That's wonderful too. You can put whole sage leaves under the skin for, I call it the Martha effect, because it's like a really pretty bird when you're done. The other thing I would say is that you may want to smoke your turkey for the first hour and a half, and then finish at a higher temperature to render out some of that water from the skin and to crisp it up. You can always brush the outer skin with butter as well. But I would highly recommend that if you're going to use a butter product, use a really good high fat butter product, because all those little all those little milk particles that are in that butter give you that golden goodness on the outside, that iconic, beautiful, perfect, centerpiece turkey. I also would recommend this. Buy tons and tons of herbs. So when you dress your plate, it looks lovely and full. Or kale. Make that beautiful turkey pop. You work so hard for it, and it's such a beautiful showcase for the entire year. And at the end of the day, if you go and you do just a really simple, well-seasoned, properly cooked turkey, I would highly recommend using a meter probe, because honestly, overcooked turkey is never good for anyone. So make sure you put, your probe in the thickest part of the breast. I think that's really key. And you run the smoke that you like. So if you're in Texas, or if you're in Indiana, or if you're in New York, whether you're using maple, oak, hickory, whatever your flavor of choice is, that wood-fired smoke is going to come out really well on that turkey.
I love this. I know our listeners are going to love it as well. And you just talked around two of the things I wanted to follow up with on the turkeys, since we're here, is the aesthetics of it. Now, you mentioned the plating. What about the aesthetics of the bird itself to make sure you get it right?
Well, I think one of the things is that a lot of people carve turkeys wrong. To be perfectly honest, John, I think that's a big thing. A lot of people will still slice their breast, in that iconic, Hallmark picture where the head of the household is cutting straight down. I'm a bigger fan of taking the breasts off completely. And then cutting individual portions going against the grain, so that each individual person has a part of that beautiful, skin. Because if it's done right, it's just glorious, as we all know. I love dressing the plate with other things. Like a lot of times I'll do a little bit of an orange or a citrus touch in my brines. And so I'll take mandarin oranges, I'll take cranberries, I'll take sprigs of rosemary or thyme, and lay that around the bird so that it's displayed beautifully. I typically will not serve my bird whole, in its intact state, because once you cut it apart, and if you cut it apart, with some care, I've got a 6-inch boning knife that I use it for everything, but that's definitely an easy way to get around the joints, very simply, and lay that out onto a beautiful platter. It's a much nicer aesthetic, and
I've seen it. You're right. I've seen it. You're absolutely right.
I've done a few thousand over the years, and one of the things I always try to do is that we eat with our eyes, we feast with our eyes first, and I want that tray to be beautiful. So, and often I'll literally just take whole cranberries and pop them around the tray too, because that's a side dish, but I think it makes the color pop, and I want it to look great.
Yeah, and the other part of it is kind of the big question for a lot of people that are trying turkeys, and that is the moisture. It's very, very, even a chicken, as I mentioned earlier, but it's very, very difficult to make sure you get the moisture. You got legs, you got wings, and then of course you have the breast. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think one of the key things for me is that I typically will not brine my chickens unless it's for flavor. But on a turkey, we're absolutely going after moisture, because they denature differently. They break down differently. The cell structure opens up a lot differently on a turkey versus a chicken. So one of the things I do is I make a basic brine. I really do 1 cup, Redmond kosher salt, to a gallon and a half of water and or low sodium vegetable stock. You can use either. And then I put in a lot of savory items. So I like allspice, peppercorns, definitely some herbs, and usually some either oranges or lemons in that brine as well. And then I temper it with some brown sugar as well. Everybody can find that recipe, and it's the Diva Q. It's the Diva Q go-to all-purpose brine. It's one of my 5 essential recipes. And one of the key things for me is that, you know, a brine is a wonderful opportunity to capture moisture. You know, one of the things that they do is, you know, a cell structure on anything is like this. It's like your tight closed fist. What happens is the brine opens it up a bit. So in between all of those little cell structures, what happens is they start to unravel. They start to open up, denature, and that's the term. But they also end up capturing more moisture in between the cells, because what we're doing is we're taking the density of one water, which is the naturally occurring turkey myoglobin, and we're replacing it with a heavier, denser water filled with flavor and salts and sugars. And that, to me, is an essential learning tool for anybody that's in barbecuing or cooking in general. When you learn how to brine and the salinity levels, the salt levels are enough for that item, you can actually capture the juiciest, most delicious roast turkey ever. And then, of course, I'm just going to give a shout out because my mom passed away for many years now. But I will say this: if you would like the best ever the best on the planet, because my mama knew how to do it. Okay. She was not a good, let me tell you, she was not a good cook, but this woman could make gravy magic.
Oh my gosh.
Google Diva Q gravy and you get my mama's recipe.
Oh, come on now. We're talking mama's recipe. I mean, this is the Diva Q is going to go off the charts. Your hits are going to go off the charts after this. But now and then just cook it, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it's kind of a hack when you brine like this. Kind of a hack. You can just cook it how you cook it.
Yeah, and the thing is, once again, it's about temperature control. You know, one of the key things I preach. I have been preaching this for 18 and a half hours. Stop paying attention to recipes that give you durations in hours or minutes. And they're just ballparks, you know.
Temperature.
It's all about. We always measure by temperature over time. Always. One of the greatest things you can remember is that it's done when it's done. It's barbecue, you know. And if it's not done yet, you just make another cocktail. I mean, it's really simple. Get you some bourbon, you know. Get you a glass of champagne. Get you some bubblies. Whatever you want to do.
Yeah, you're invited to my house anytime, because that's exactly what we do. We're like, well, it's not done yet. Okay, well.
I always like to have, you know, for the holiday season, I will say this: I do have a lot of appetizers. I try to have like little nibbles and things like that. So I want my friends and family, and you know, I have a very small family now. My parents are both passed, so it's usually more of a Friendsgiving situation for me than anything else. I just try to make sure that everybody is comfortable. I try to make sure I take into consideration all their lovely favorites and things like that. A wide variety of little nibbles, whether it's, you know, a baked brie with a lovely, you know, fig puree or a walnut puree on top, or it could be, you know, a bruschetta with some beautiful cheeses. It could be something as simple as pigs in a blanket, which still to this day is one of my all-time favorites. I don't care. I love me a little smoky and a little puff pastry and a little bit of cheese. I'm telling you, that is a perfect appetizer as far as I'm concerned. And you know, that's the thing about the holidays. We're going into the holidays. There's lots of great recipes. It's also, I think, not a time to experiment. Okay. Experiment for game day recipes. Experiment when you're watching the football game on Sundays or Saturdays, depending if you're SEC or if you're NFL. But don't experiment with recipes at Thanksgiving. Have it figured out, make a game plan, put it on the fridge, check mark everything off, double check your supplies, and make sure that you prep 2 days in advance. Like, I get all my stuffing ingredients ready. I have my favorite thing. Okay, this might shock everybody. I actually rarely eat Thanksgiving dinner, to be perfectly honest. I love cooking it for everybody. Okay, but usually when everybody's here at my house, okay, and we've had anything from 25 to 60 people here for Friendsgiving, depending on the years. I'm usually the one just sitting there drinking bourbon at that point, because
you're nibbling occasionally, I'm sure, so that kind of fills you.
Well, but my thing is, I'm going to tell you right now, my favorite moment of Thanksgiving is we start playing poker right around 11 o'clock.
Okay.
And I'm all about the sandwich. I am all about that beautiful, well-constructed turkey sandwich and the next day. So that moisture on the turkey is so key to me to getting it perfect every time. Because I'm all about, you know, my sausage and cornbread stuffing and my beautiful, you know, thick slab of juicy, tender breast meat that's been smoked and seared on the grill or whatnot. And that's what I'm all about. So, you know, Thanksgiving doesn't have to be complicated. You just got to think it out.
Last thing on the Thanksgiving, because like I said, we're here, and I feel like a lot of people are going to they're going to watch this and really kind of change the way they do their Thanksgiving on their grills. But sides seem to be, to me anyway, very underrated in a smoker or a Traeger or whatever. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think one of the things is that people need to learn how to use their grills. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say that I am definitely well known for not just doing meat, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Um, I cook, as you know, as anybody can see on my history, everything.
Mm-hmm.
And that's everything from desserts to side dishes. I would say everybody should visit TraegerGrills.com because one of my number one recipes for side dishes there, and that's my sweet potato souffle. And it got a perfect 180, 180 score more than once.
Mm-hmm.
And I am in the no marshmallow category of life. I think marshmallows on sweet potatoes are absolutely vile and disgusting, and I'll go on record saying that. And I
Vile.
know I'm going to get some. I know I'm going to get some
That's
hate
a
mail
little
for
bit
that now.
aggressive. That's a little
I
bit.
know it's aggressive, but it's an ongoing battle with my friends and my family. I am more on the toasted, candied, caramelized, pecans on my sweet potatoes. So I'm going to repost it because I always repost it right before Thanksgiving, and it's
Mhm.
literally my casserole dish that I make this sweet potato souffle on, and it's like the Mason-Dixon line at my house. Okay, half of it has toasted mini marshmallows, the other half has the caramelized, beautifully smoked pecans, because you got to make everybody happy.
Yeah, you noticed when you were talking, I turned to the side and started writing down. I wrote down sweet potato souffle
Yep.
because that's one that like the thing about Thanksgiving is like we have the relatives or the friends that like that's their dish and they bring
Yes.
that
Oh
every
yes.
year. That like I
Yes.
have someone that brings this and someone that brings that, and my
Yes.
son makes the garlic mash and my daughter
Yep.
whatever. But the
You should
sweet
have found that.
and it's usually awesome because everybody's going to bring their best. But the sweet potatoes is one that we always kind of argue about. So I wrote that down, and that might make an appearance in the old Lopez home this year. But that sounds pretty dang sweet. No
I
no
gotta
pun
say,
intended.
you should never, ever, ever, and I'm gonna go on record for saying this as well. Okay, don't ever bring potato salad unless you've been asked. Okay.
Oh my gosh, it's not a Thanksgiving dish.
Well, it's not a Thanksgiving dish, but I will tell you this: only knowledgeable people should be making a potato salad. Okay, I
Hmm.
have seen, and I know all of us have seen some whacked out, some of these recipes online. These people should not be allowed in kitchens. Okay, they
Yeah.
really shouldn't. They should not be allowed to cook. Period. Okay, but if you are putting all that junk in your potato salad, I love a good old fashioned Southern potato salad. But potato salad is like my death point for bad recipes and bad recipe
Hmm.
compilations because there's so many bad recipes for potato salad out there right now. I think always check with your host. They may have planned out their table and made sure where all the dishes, like you said, somebody brings the garlic mash, somebody
Yeah.
brings this. In all cases, if you have not been asked to bring anything, you bring flowers, you bring
Or
chocolate,
wine.
and you bring wine or bourbon. Okay, that's it. You do not come up with something special that you thought that they would enjoy. Don't be doing that to your host.
That's
It's just
awesome.
wrong. Okay.
Hey, that is fantastic. We got some Thanksgivings that are going to be set up this year because you. I do want to go here real quick because in a couple of weeks, I think in third week of November, because he's so busy, I'm going to have Jeremy Andrus on from
Yep.
Traeger
Yep.
on the podcast here, and I know you are quite familiar with his work and him. But the one thing that I talk to guys that are pure stick burners, guys
Yep.
that are a combination of Traeger or pellet grill, I should say, and stick
Yep.
burners and some who are need none of the above. But the common theme is bark.
Yep.
Bark on a pellet grill. In this case, let's say Traeger.
Yep.
And I didn't want to let you go without asking you about that because I've seen you slinging all kinds of meat that looks damn good on the Traeger. How
Yep.
about that? First of all, I love Traegers and pellet grills in general because
Yep.
they introduce more people to a passion like they
Mhm.
normally otherwise wouldn't have even begun to barbecue.
Yep.
Because they don't want to mess with the fire, they don't want to stay up all night,
Yeah.
etc. So I love that about it. I have one right to my left outside over here by my office that I use all the time, the Timberline. But the bark is sort of the flashpoint for yay or nay. How do you do it?
I think number one, people need to realize number one, I didn't come from just a pellet background. If anybody's followed my career, they would have realized that I started out on offsets as well, and charcoal, and Traeger was bought in the first week. I actually had a Traeger the first, but it wasn't the only grill I had. One of the key things about understanding bark development is understanding how water evaporates. and how water evaporates on barbecue items and barbecue meats. One of the key things for me is I stand by what I've made over the years. And you know, I am a not hiding it kind of girl. I'm very upfront.
I hadn't picked up on that.
Everybody knows that. I am not meek by any means. And one of the greatest things that has ever happened to me is Texas Star Grill Shop. No joke. Years ago. This is going, like, I've been teaching there off and on for years, and in Texas in general. Remember, Canadian girl teaching on a Traeger in Texas. We all know that path, okay? When I first started, I remember teaching. I was teaching a barbecue class, and it was a barbecue basic class. How to do a brisket, how to do a pork butt, ribs, chicken, like the 4 basic competition meats. And I walked through the entire program of how I trim a brisket, which is very different than a Texas trim because it's all about the protein side versus the fat side. I don't trim down to the 1/4 inch of fat, which is very typical for a Texas style trimmed brisket. And there's nothing wrong with that. We just trim a little differently. And I went through my entire program of seasoning, of spritzing, because smoke is water soluble, the ingredients that I was using, the combination I was using, the mesquite pellets I was using on the Traeger. And at that time, it was to Traeger, let's see, it would have been a Pro at that point that I was working on. And I walked through the whole program, and there was, I don't know, 5 or 6 really burly big Texas boys. You know, we're talking good old Texas boys. Like they're, you know the type, okay? They all got the buckles, they all got the belts, they all got the hats. They all got the pressed, starched shirts. They from Ariat, of course, and some good Wranglers. Okay, so they had the outfit, and we all know what they look like. And so one of the great things is at the end of the class, and I've taught in Midland, Houston. I've been all over Texas over the years, Dallas, you name it. They all came and shook my hand because they were so adamantly convinced in their heads that you could not get a bark on a brisket. And I showed them the step-by-step. And one of the greatest things, I remember this moment very clearly in my career, because, you know, there is those people that don't understand. It's all in the denaturing. It's all understanding how meat works. And the Traeger provides an environment in which, yes, it's not a stick burner. It is what it is.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful opportunity for people to make everyday barbecue wonderful. We make people backyard rock stars. The downward draft that has clean smoke, that enables people to do it in the ease of their own, homes.
Yeah.
And the intimidation factor for them is gone.
Yeah.
And we make kick-ass levels of brisket and pork and chicken and ribs. And I'm pretty sure I might have a few awards over the year that prove that. I think
so.
As well.
I think hundreds.
Including quite a few where people are like, oh, no, she didn't possibly do that on a Traeger. Well, yeah, she did. She did for many years. So, it's there is nothing wrong with a stick burner. I'm never going to try to convince somebody not to use their stick burner. Why would I? I think barbecue brings us all together and it elevates us all. But I do want to enable, a few other million people to barbecue as well.
Yeah, I think that's the trick. Hall of Famer to be Danielle Bennett, Diva Q, and I definitely wanted to have you talk about that because I mean this is one of those that hey, Hall of Fame, that's going to be there forever, and it's at the American Royal, correct? Fill us in.
So this is one of the greatest honors you can receive in a barbecue career. Greatest honors by far is number one, doing well at the American Royal, which I've had the opportunity to do well in the past. Got quite a few 180 pins for the American Royal, which is nice, and meat and sides and everything, desserts. One of the greatest shocks of my life, I think, was this year that the nominating committee nominated me, and I was like, wow, I honest to goodness thought it was just an absolute honor, truly an honor just to be nominated. Like I said, I've been doing this 18 and a half years. I have very much established myself as someone who does not fit the traditional barbecue mold. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
Obviously.
Sure.
Obviously, having a career that has spanned 18 and a half years, a very successful career, working with great clients, working with great people, and teaching now. Are you ready for this? I'm glad you're sitting down. We added up some numbers just this past week. I've taught over 24,000 students now.
Good
in
gravy.
the world. 24,000 students is what I've taught. Over that now. And having an opportunity to impact people all over the world to bring people together through wood-fired smoke, it has been an honor. It has been one of the greatest blessings of my life. And then to get the call from the American Royal, that they nominated me, and they decided that I needed to be a part of the Hall of Fame. And that's kind it was a shock. Yeah, I gotta tell you, I was like, holy cow, what an honor, what a lovely honor. So that's at the American Royal. There's a black apron ceremony. My family and one of my best friends is flying in for it. It's a big deal in my world. And I'm still kind of like going, holy cow.
No, heck yeah, man. You should be.
It's a big deal. They only take a very, very minute amount of people every year. And some of the past inductees, Dr. Lampy, Dr. Ray Lampy, one of my buddies, and quite a few other incredible people that I am so beloved of. And I am thankful and grateful. And if there is anything that's ever humbled me, this is definitely it. It's shocking.
Yeah. No, that is absolutely fantastic. And of course, one other thing you do, I just want to mention here, because we were talking off air about it, the Winter Haven High School barbecue team is something that you work with a lot. They have a culinary arts school as well. And I'm sitting here thinking, okay, we need more high schools to do that. And maybe we will get more. I know there's a few here in the Houston area that have that, but that's something that's just going to keep on keeping on with the industry, huh?
Yeah, they're just starting out. One of the great things I believe in is I have been really, truly blessed with a life that I love and doing things that I love. And I think that it is something that is so important, is giving back to your community in whatever capacity you can. Okay. And I'm in a position to give back to my community. And so they just started up this barbecue team, and they've asked me to consult with them and help them. So we are, this coming week, we're going to be helping them out with some instructions and with some lessons. One of the great things I get to do is Betsy and the team over there. I'll get the opportunity to go in and teach them some basics again, how to cut up a chicken, how to brine, how to season, how to do all the things. They have different categories. There's an entire new segment of the population that's all about barbecue teams for high school students. And I think one of the key things here is that it's not so much about winning or losing. And I mean, everybody likes to win. But I think what we need to do, in all honesty, is to bring back a lot more culinary, home economy.
Totally agree. Totally agree.
Stop teaching students how to do crap they're never going to use in their lives. And teach them how to budget, teach them how to make a kitchen run, teach them how to change a light bulb, teach them how to change a tire, teach them how to change a battery. And my soapbox is really wide on this one.
Yeah, no, I agree.
But the crap that we're teaching them now versus what they need to know in life to survive and not be some indulgent, overcompensated little twats is a big thing. Okay. And I really think that the degradation of a lot of our high school morals and principles, and I think we need to give a center back to where we are teaching fundamentals and basics and real life applicable situations. And how to cook is the basis from it all. And barbecuing is along that line. So I love the fact that I can go in and I can go volunteer. It's an unpaid, but let me be very clear. I don't make any money from this. This is my own time. This is volunteering. I am so grateful and blessed for the opportunity to be able to impact children and teens and tweens and all that. But yeah, I wish more people, if you're out there and you have time, contact your local high school.
I agree.
Go teach a skill to them. You know how to do woodworking. I still have the bowl that I made on a lathe when I was in high school. Okay, because I had to take shop class. We need to bring back those programs. We need to be more apt on teaching people how to change out a tap or any of those things. I can go on and on.
No, look, man, you can, and I have no problem with that. But good on you, man. And whether you like it or not, at some point down the road, I'm going to have you on here again. I'll just keep bugging you. But really appreciate it. Congratulations on the Hall of Fame. I think a lot of people's Thanksgivings just got a lot better. And thank you for joining us here on the Bite Meat podcast.
Thanks so much for the opportunity to come on. I always appreciate it, even though we had to reschedule a few times, the hurricane and all
I think there was a good reason.
It's all good. But remember, if anybody wants to get a hold of me, come find me on Instagram, Diva Q, BBQ. Or if you're not on Instagram and you're still on Facebook, which I am too, come see me at Diva Q, BBQ. I post lots of great recipes. And for all things Traeger and all things Diva Q, all you have to do is Google Diva Q and the recipe. I got your Thanksgiving covered.
And we will. Yeah, well, you definitely have that. All right. That's Danielle Bennett, Diva Q. And this is the Bite Meat Podcast coming up, the smoking hot tip of the week. We got you covered there as well.